take a look at it, every group that came from El Salvador, somebody didn't want them to come here. And you never know when it's your turn. It may be Muslims today, but recognize throughout this great global area, as America tries to get support for freedom and democracy, how they look at us in New York, how they look at our politicians, how they look at our lack of tolerism is how they look at the United States of America. I think any politician that takes advantage of this problem that people may have of convenience or lack of it should be ashamed, and I stand with the mayor and the governor in saying that this isn't a problem for Muslims. It's a problem for America in doing the right thing and respecting our Constitution. And when people say that they want it enforced, I come from a group of people that came here as slaves. And I know it made a lot of people uncomfortable. They felt terrible, and they thought the country was letting them down. The Jewish community felt it. The Catholic community felt it. And we cannot allow this type of intolerance to continue. So I am just here as a patriot, one who loves this country, and one who always thought that in New York City, when we opened up our arms, it included every religion, especially one that has been honored all over the world by so many people. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Now I invite our second Vice President, Imam Talib Abdul Rashid. He is going to present a statement. This is the conclusion of 55 leaders from this city, Islamic leaders of mosques and different Islamic organizations. Imam Talib.
Good morning, everyone. Peace be unto you all. Assalamu alaikum. Before we summarize for you this afternoon the contents of the statement that we have all signed on to, there are two things that we want to point out. The first is that we want to make it clear that we are not in Tariq Amalullah and Abu Chaudhry and Muhammad Chaudhry and Abid Hussein and Sister Nasima Hamid Sinji. These are just a few of the names of Muslims who are on the list of the people who lost their lives in the destruction of the Twin Towers. Muslims died in the destruction of the Twin Towers. Amongst the first responders who came to the scene and worked in the ruins, there were Muslim firemen, Muslim police officers, Muslim EMTs, Muslim chaplains, both male and female, who ministered to the family. And even now, 9 years later, this fact is not well known to the American public. Secondly, as our Amir, Imam Al-Amin said, and we brought the photographs to prove this to you, and you're welcome to walk up to anyone holding a photograph. Those of you who have photographs, hold them up. These are photographs of a funeral prayer for the Muslims who were killed in the destruction of the tower that we had right across the street on Warren Street 2 weeks after September 11th. And that was made possible for us to do that by the mayor's office, it was Mayor Giuliani at that time, and also the NYPD, who brought us into the closed ground zero area so that we might pray for those of our faith who had been killed and who were victims. So we are here today because we want to say respectfully that just as there were Muslims who were killed on that tragic day, and just as there were Muslim first responders who came on that tragic day, that we do not believe that we are good enough to die, that we are good enough to minister to others, that we are good enough to respond to tragedy, but we're not good enough to be able to build a place where we can pray right where we worked and died. And so the summation of our statement. The summation of our statement speaks to ethnic and religious bigotry, religious intolerance, and ethnic bigotry. We remind the American public that the kind of hate speech that has been circulating throughout America, as the Imam said, directed against Islam, directed against Muslims, that we in the Muslim community, we're looking at this pattern. We do not look at Part 51 in isolation from these patterns of opposition to the building of mosques. Just 2 months or so ago, the same people raised opposition to the purchase of a convent that had been closed for several years in Staten Island. And the Muslims made arrangements to be able to purchase that convent, and the same people who have created a ruckus around Park 51 created a ruckus in Staten Island and resulted in the offer being withdrawn. We, the Muslim community, is an ethnically diverse community. The efforts on the part of people to paint Muslims as the them to us, the American people, we denounce that effort. We are all part of the American people. Those who have come here from other lands and those of us who have been here for next to 500 years. African American Muslims, we recognize these patterns of behavior. We recognize the language that is being directed toward Muslims. In fact, today, tomorrow, in the city of Washington, a coalition of African American, Muslim, and non-Muslim leaders are going to speak to this type of intolerance and bigotry that we are all so familiar with. And also, we want to remind those who constantly point out the sacred nature of the area there. And if the area is truly sacred, then maybe they need to clear the area of bars and those other types of establishments that are over there. But again, that we are African Americans of the Muslim community. We know about sacred ground. We remind everyone that we're standing on sacred ground right now. That underneath our feet, starting from the southern tip of City Hall Park, going all the way over to Broadway, over near 26 Federal Plaza, that these are the grounds of what is called the African burial ground.
That's right.
And there are many Muslims who are buried in the African burial ground. Islam and Muslims are not new to Lower Manhattan.
All right.
Most of you in the press have now become aware of the fact that there is a mosque on Warren Street that was opened 1 year before the erection of the Twin Towers. It was in front of that mosque. Those of you who have photographs, hold them up. It was in front of that mosque that we stood in the streets and offered the funeral prayer. So, in conclusion, dear brothers and sisters and members of the press, and again, I'm just summarizing a rather long statement, and I was just reminded, and thank you for that reminder, that in the aftermath of 9/11, the Muslims also lined up at mosques and at centers to donate blood again for surviving victims of 9/11. One of our chaplains, Imam Umar Abdul Jalil, was the supervising chaplain at the makeshift morgue that had been set up. So, again, we thank all of you for coming out. We want to say to our interfaith brothers and sisters and to the people of principle who have spoken up in defense not just of right, but in defense of truth. It is the truth that Muslims are part of us and not just them. And so we thank those